listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author Sarah Box, where you get the inside scoop on the steps action takers and decision makers take to align their purpose to their principles and achieve their goals in business and life. We focus on the mantra, no labels, no limits, no excuses. Each week, you'll hear from remarkable guests who have overcome challenges and obstacles to succeed in the face of adversity. By listening to their stories, you'll get practical tips, tools, and resources you can implement today to bust through your own internalized prisons of worry and doubt. And now, without further ado, please welcome your commanding coach with plenty of chutzpah and heart, Sarah Box.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the No Labels, No Limits podcast, a podcast all about meeting action takers and decision makers like you who are committed to living their purpose while they're aligned to their principles and values. And as a result, they achieve their goals in business and life. I'm your host, Sarah Box from Sarah Box Coaching and Consulting. I'm a former executive director, best-selling author of The Changemaker Ripple Effect, and founder of the Intentional Nonprofit Leaders Community, where we help successful and exhausted, stressed, and overextended nonprofit executives regain time, implement a stress-free systematic process that creates a strong board and staff so that they can do the work they are meant to do. And I'm here to tell you that the life you want is possible with the right support, mindset, and persistence. With that in mind, on today's podcast, I am really excited to introduce you to a special guest, Rebecca Thompson. Now, Rebecca is an experienced speaker, writer, consultant, facilitator, and coach with more than 30 years in the manufacturing, aerospace, and healthcare industries. She has worked with such companies as Eastman Kodak, General Motors, Blue Cross Blue Shield, North Carolina, and primarily in the fields of leadership and team development. That does not even touch the surface of what is exciting to me about Rebecca Thompson. Today, she is the principal of Evolve Without Limits, a coaching and consulting practice. Do you get the link here? No labels, no limits, Evolve Without Limits. I think we're going to really love this interview. She sounds pretty great, but that's still just part of her story, because beneath the surface and all of those kind of high qualifications and skills that she brings to the table, Rebecca actually courageously walked a path to emerge into the life that she has today. And you're going to learn about that in today's episode. We're going to find out what was really going on when the world who saw her as a successful engineer and mom started to fall apart, and she discovered more of what was going on in her life, how she overcame her challenges and also on the way became a Reiki master, certified crystal therapist, and shamanic coach. I'm totally intrigued. And the impact of her talks with the moon, super intrigued. So now let's welcome our guest, Rebecca Thompson. And Rebecca, before we dive into the full interview with you, I wanted to ask you, is there a single thing that you do, a ritual or a habit that you have that you practice that keeps you headed and focused on your big vision or goal?
You know, Sarah, I would say for me, it's journaling. I've been journaling not every single day, but most days for many, many years. And it kind of helps me clear all the junk out of my head and slows me down, because just getting it from the jumble of thoughts in my head out through the pen kind of helps me slow down my thoughts a little bit. So it's almost a meditative type of practice for me to spend some time every day journaling.
So because I'm nosy and always have questions, do you have a specific format that you use for journaling? Like, do you just free form journal? Do you talk with yourself, your higher self? Or do you have a series of questions or things that you do habitually in your journaling?
No, it's pretty random. I mean, sometimes it's just a list of the things I did. It's like a record of what's going on in my life, just to kind of keep track of what's going on. Sometimes it's to kind of explore a question or a decision, kind of the pros and the cons, or what are all the voices in my head saying. So it can be anything, really, just whatever's swimming around in my head, just trying to get that out of there and slow me down a little bit, calm me down.
And when that's done, and is that a morning practice for you then?
Typically in the morning, yes. Not
Typically.
always, but typically.
So when that's done, what does that do for you in terms of like, how do you feel or experience your day differently as a result of that?
I feel much calmer. I'm one of those people that has that monkey mind, a lot of chatter going on in my head all the time. So just getting some of that out. And like I said, it slows down my thinking so that I'm not all aflutter. I'm calmer. I would say I'm calmer as a result of that practice.
Oh, calm is such a nice thing. Um, so let's go back and do some context for the folks who are joining us and for me as well, because the life you have today emerged from just things that had gotten kind of where you weren't living. I would say you were more boxed into a more limited version of yourself. What was the position that you found yourself in that prompted you to go on your personal journey of transformation?
Yes. So, I grew up in a small town, Western Pennsylvania. Was just a very ordinary girl, and went off to college at Penn State, and met and married my college sweetheart. And we were both engineering students, and we both got jobs in Rochester, New York. And so we moved up there, and we were just kind of living the American dream. We bought a house and got a dog, and literally put up a white picket fence. And we started raising 3 babies, and everything was just going great. It was what I had expected for my life, and everything was sort of going according to plan until it wasn't, right? As often happens. So my engineer, then husband, decided he wanted to start his own business, and that went great for a while. And then the economy took a turn, and his clients weren't paying their bills, and so then we weren't paying our bills, and he started to drink heavily. And I came from a family of not drinking. So I wasn't really familiar with alcohol and the signs of alcoholism or anything like that. And we'd gone to Penn State and drank quite a lot there as students, as college students often do. And at the time I thought it was cool because I had come from a place of not drinking, and it was just new and it was fun. So I didn't really notice, so much. I didn't see it. It took a long time for me to see signs that it was a problem. So I would say I was probably in denial for a while. In fact, a friend had to point out to me that, I think your husband might have a problem, because her father was an alcoholic, and so she could see some things, and she helped me out. But it started to impact us financially. It impacted our relationship, and we ultimately he closed his business and he took a job. He was a very good engineer, good at what he did, and he had a good reputation. So it was fairly easy for him to get a job, but we ended up moving out of state. And so here I was in a new state, new city, didn't know a single soul, and worried about my husband's increasing alcoholism, and getting started with my own new career in a new city. So just a lot of things. And I was increasingly confused and frustrated and wondering what I should do with my life. And I came from this background of, you should be married for life, and you should stand by your man no matter what, and just work it out and figure it out. So I had a lot of belief systems that were telling me that, that you just got to stick it out and you just suck it up, right? So I didn't see a different vision for myself, because I did not think something different was possible. So that's where I was.
Well, so you said someone helped point that out to you, that there might be something bigger going on than you recognized for yourself. But what did you do? Like, what was one of your first steps to start moving beyond that? Because those are powerful beliefs that could keep you locked into doing nothing, and to just go, let's wait and see if it gets better.
And that's actually what I did for a really long time. And he would change jobs and we would move, and I would think, okay, it's a fresh start. This is great. Everything's going to be fine now, more denial. So I'd let that go a long time. And I just tried to keep all the balls in the air, tried to keep the bills paid and manage my own career. And I thought, I'd try to manage him. I'd try to count how many beers he's drinking every day, or I'd try to keep him busy so that he couldn't drink. And, I tried to very codependent behavior, trying to fix everything and manage everything on my own. But what got me started down my spiritual journey path, and I wouldn't have called it that then, I had no language for spiritual journey. But I had moved to a new community, and I just wanted to meet people and make some friends and get involved in the community. And so my daughter and I were doing some volunteer work, and a woman that we met, as a result of that, invited us to a dowsing class. That was the very first thing. And we didn't know anything about dowsing. I'd never heard of it other than, is that what you do with a fork stick to find water? I mean, that was the only context I had for the word dowsing. So it was just completely unfamiliar, but we liked this woman that invited us to the class, and we thought it would be fun and interesting, and worst case, it'd be a good story, So off we went to this class, and that was the very beginning, and just the start of a whole series of adventures.
So I'm going to tell you, my experience with dowsing is limited to Western TV shows.
Okay, so, there you go. See?
Right. Yeah. Which means it doesn't exist. Maybe a little bit more than that, but not much. So will you share with all of us, myself included, what is it?
Sure. So what I found out on my one-day dowsing class, we went to her home, and she explained to us that it's a divination practice. So it's a way to find answers to your questions using energy that comes up from the earth through your body. And of course, I was very skeptical. I had never been exposed to anything metaphysical whatsoever, very narrow background. And I just thought, yikes, I don't have any special powers to be able to do this. It's not going to work. I can't do it. This is crazy. I mean, those were all the things that were going through my head. And I'm thinking, what am I even doing here? But the woman presented us each with a set of dowsing rods. So they're kind of straight metal rods, each on a handle, and they swing freely on these handles. And the idea is you ask a yes or no question, and the rods will swing in a certain way if it's a yes, and they'll swing in a different way if it's a no. And so it's the positions of the rods will differ depending on the individual. So our first instruction was to just take our rods and go off in a corner and work with them to find out our own personal yes or no response coming from these rods. And so I was thinking, well, it's not going to work. The rods are not going to do anything for me because I don't have any superpowers. So I thought, I'm going to go play with them for 5 minutes, and then I'll gather up my daughter and I'll tell the hostess, thank you very much for having us, but this isn't really my thing. That is truly what I thought would happen. But I went off in my corner and I did what she had instructed us to do. And to my astonishment, the rods responded in the way that she had described. And I said, show me a yes. And sure enough, both rods moved in a certain way. And I thought I did that. Right. I wiggled them. I did that somehow. And so I kept repeating it over and over, and it still kept occurring. And then I did the other, show me a no, and they moved in a completely different way. And I thought, am I doing this? How is this happening? But it was very consistent. And then you start to ask questions, yes or no questions. And you start by practicing with things that are easily verifiable, like, will I see my daughter today? And because my daughter
she's in the same room.
And she's in the same room. Yeah. So will I see my son? He's away at college. So the answer is probably no, I won't see him, so things like that. And so you start to kind of build up your ability to do this. But I didn't really stay with dowsing so much, but I was hooked on this idea that energy has movement and can tell us things. I was just fascinated with that idea. And the next thing, as a result of that class, right at the end of that class, we were invited to come to a Reiki class. And I did not know anything about Reiki, but it's about the movement of energy through your body to help promote stress relief, relaxation, and to promote healing. And I was very intrigued by that idea and went off to the class, and that I just fell in love with. And I went on to take the 3 levels of training that lead to you becoming a Reiki master, so that you can practice it and you can teach others to practice it, and just have seen amazing results from that. And so I really, really was hooked.
Mm-hmm. To me, it seems so congruent with your background as an engineer, though, because you think about what does it take, whether depending on the type of engineering, there's still that thing about energy and structure and how things connect. And you just moved into a whole nother realm with it.
Yeah, I actually love finding that intersection between science and the metaphysical because of most of my life, I thought there was no connection between the two. And then, so something like crystals, and you mentioned in my background that I have studied to be a crystal therapist. And at first, when I first thought about crystals, I thought, well, that's just superstition that you carry a crystal for good luck or, whatever. And did not see any scientific connection. But again, as you said, it's all about energy, and crystals vibrate at a certain level because we're all made of atoms and molecules. Everything's made of atoms and molecules that vibrate. And because crystals have a more stable structure, they're solids, they vibrate at a different frequency than we do, being mostly made of water. And because they're more stable, they have an influence over a less stable molecular structure. And so there are properties of crystals that will influence us as humans. So it's scientifically, plausible that crystals have properties that will influence us. So it's exciting to me to find those connections. I love that.
So before we move on a little bit, because I want to keep talking about kind of your transformation, and I do have some other questions. I just want to know, how far did your daughter go with you on this journey? Was she out after the dowsing, or did she go back to do the Reiki with you?
She did. She thought nothing of the dowsing. She thought it was really dumb, to be honest. And she just thought it was the dumbest thing. And but she was so cool because she's very smart. And she said, I don't need this to answer my questions. I can just rely on my own intuition. And I thought, wow, because I never relied on my own intuition. I thought I need all the help I can get. But here's this kid, and she was like 16 at the time, maybe. And she's like, I don't need that. I'm good. But she did go on to take Reiki, and she took the Reiki 1 and 2 level classes with me, and she really liked it. And I thought she would continue to practice, but she went off to college the next year, and I was taking the Reiki master training. She was in college, but her degrees are in astrophysics and physics and math. And she's very science oriented, and she's sort of kind of denied the metaphysical now, and doesn't claim to see the connections. But
so far,
I just laugh because I know it's all one. It's all the same, so it doesn't matter whether she denies it or not. It's all there.
Well, and if she trusts her intuition so much, she doesn't have to verbalize it. She's already living it. So
yeah,
that's kind of cool. Yeah. Sounds like she's already doing fine.
Yes.
So when you were going through all of that, the tough stuff, and I don't want to underestimate or underplay how difficult that is to recognize that you're in a relationship that is hard to even see your way out of, especially when you care for someone so much and you're trying to manage others, which of course doesn't really work. But what did you get out of that? Like what was one of the things about, or a limiting belief that you had to confront? And what was something that you learned about yourself, maybe that surprised you, that made you appreciate your own true brilliance?
Mm-hmm. I think the thing I've learned the most is that I have power and strength that I had no idea that I had. And I did not know that I could change my life. I didn't know, I used to say I was afraid. I was afraid to leave my husband because I had never lived on my own. We got married right out of college. So I went from my parents' home to college to my married home, and never had lived by myself. And so I was afraid to do that. And I didn't know if I could. And a friend of mine later, who was going through this side by side with me, kind of, she told me later that she would be so frustrated when I would say that because she could see that I was already managing everything. I was running the household and paying the bills and managing my career and raising the kids, and he's off drinking, and she's like, how can you not see that you are already doing all this? But you're in it and you don't see it, and you feel powerless and weak and scared and frustrated. And so you're not seeing how much you're really able to do. And looking back, I can see it, but in it, I couldn't.
Tired of feeling stuck and ending with the same result? Want to know how Sarah can help you with one-on-one or organizational coaching? Then book your free discovery call at sarahbox.com/contact. Now, back to the show.
Well, before we went live and started recording, you shared with me kind of when you went to see a counselor and she started you doing something totally unexpected. Like you went in expecting you were going to go through this whole like, tell me your story kind of thing. But
Yes.
yet you got something different, and that seemed to be like open you up in a different way. Can you share that?
Sure. So I went to see what was called a spiritual counselor, spiritual coach. And again, I didn't really know what that was, but I had met her through the Reiki class. Everything led to another, like pearls on a string. And so that was the next thing. And and she was talking about some things that she did, and it just gave me a strong intuitive feeling that I had some things that needed to be taken care of. So I made an appointment to go see her. And yes, it started out, and I'd been to traditional therapists and coaches, and so I was expecting it. I didn't know what I was expecting, but it started out the same in terms of she asked me about my life and what were the presenting problems, and so I went through my whole spiel, and she said, and then I thought, here we go, she's just going to tell me to journal about it, and I'll go home and that'll be that. But instead, she said, let's get rid of some of those bad feelings. And I thought, whoa, that's different. Nobody's ever said right here and now in the moment, we're going to get rid of some of these bad feelings. And my bad feelings were about being lonely, even though my husband was at home, because he would just drink and pass out and basically didn't have a relationship. Right. So she had me talk about the wording of that statement till it really, she's like, I want you to be at a 10 out of 10 in how bad this feels, And so we got to the statement that was, I feel alone even when my husband's at home. And she said, we're going to do something. No, she just said, she didn't tell me what it was called. She just said, just do what I do. And she started with her fingertips tapping on the top of her head, and then tapping on her forehead and her eyebrows and her cheekbones. And I thought, what is she doing? And she said, just do what I do. Just follow me. Just do what I do. And she went through this whole sequence of, tapping on different body parts. And so I started doing it. And we did this for a while. And then she said, okay, let's say that statement again. How do you feel now? Is it still a 10 out of 10? And I was like, no, it's more like a 6. She's like, let's keep going. Okay. So we just kept doing that for a while, and she'd check in every once in a while until it was a 1, and like, okay, let's do it a few more times. And when the last time, when it was at a 0, I just burst out laughing because the statement, when I said it, had no emotion whatsoever in it, and it was a 0, and it just was so great. It was so freeing. And again, it's based on principles of acupuncture and the meridians and the pressure points in the body, and energy gets trapped there, and these statements and these bad feelings they're all energy, and they're stored in us. And if we can release that, then we're free of it. So there's medical science behind that as well. And I had no idea. And so it's there's 2 different terms for that. There's emotional freedom technique, and then there's thought field therapy. So EFT and TFT, they're slightly different, but same basic principle
Of releasing the energy.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, those are 2 other tools that are out there. And I still do that sometimes, if I find myself worrying about something, or just like, something's in my brain that I can't get rid of. It's like, all right, let's just tap on that for a while. And it's actually just very relaxing to just do that, whether you have a thought in mind or not, but just, go through kind of a nice little sequence of tapping. It feels good.
So I want to ask a little bit more, not in any particular order, but I noticed from researching you that you also work in your practice. So as a coach, you work with folks much in the way that you got helped, right? Thinking about life purpose and planning.
Yes.
But you have some other services that are closer to the dowsing for folks who aren't used to that, right? So you also include the potential for folks to have spirit animal readings, shamanic journeying, or distance Reiki treatments. And I'm curious if you would share a little bit about each of those, and And I know you do the MBTI, so I have a question for you about that once we're done with these.
Okay.
I'm full of
Yes.
questions.
So great. So all of these services are kind of a marrying of my corporate experience of many years and my studies in the metaphysical world. And for a long time, I thought that those two things couldn't meet up. I had a foot in the corporate world for many years and was an executive coach and did leadership development training and team building, and never brought in my metaphysical side. I didn't know what people would think of that, and people would think it was weird or whatever. um, but I learned a lot of great techniques by doing that, and became certified in the MBTI, which I love, and I have other assessments that I use as well, and just really enjoy that kind of work. But meanwhile, I was doing this spiritual exploration, and I'll talk about the distance Reiki first, since we already have started talking about Reiki a little bit. Part of the level 2 training was around doing distance treatments. And so, if you don't believe in the concept of space and time, it's pretty easy to be able to visualize sending energy to a distant location. And I kind of approach everything. It seems like I go into everything as a skeptic, but maybe that's healthy. And then it has to be proven to me. But, we were in a group Reiki class, and we were split into two groups, but we were partnered with someone from the other group, and one group was in one room and one group was in the other. And you were asked to do a Reiki treatment on someone that was in a different room in the other group, and you were not able to touch them. You could use a proxy like a stuffed animal, something like that, but you would be visualizing that person and the whole treatment you were giving them. And then that group came back in the room and they were like, that was amazing. I felt everything. And then it happened to me. I had the treatment done on me by someone who was in another room, and I felt every part of it. And it was just as though someone were doing the treatment in the same room on me. So I was amazed. And I still have someone that I went through the Reiki master training with. I live in Southern California, but she lives in North Carolina, and we still do distance treatments on each other. Like, especially if one of us is really stressed out or is having a medical problem or something, she'll just like Facebook message me and say, will you do a treatment for me sometime this weekend, and we'll agree on a time. And she'll know, she'll text me and be like, I knew exactly when you started and exactly when you stopped. So it's just truly amazing.
That was my question for you, because when you were in separate rooms, there wasn't like, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to do for you. None of that was communicated ahead of time.
No, we had no idea. Yeah.
Wow. That's something.
So it's pretty cool. It's so I offered that as a service, and people want to try that out. It's really pretty cool. It's very relaxing, and you just feel relaxed and warm and comfortable, and it's nice. It's like a massage, but without the pressure of a massage. It's just a relaxing kind of warmth feeling.
Well, and today, will we have to social distance?
Exactly. It's perfect for social distancing, distance Reiki treatments. Yes, absolutely. So you'd asked about that. And then what else were we talking about?
The shamanic
training.
Either, both.
Yeah. So as part of my corporate life, I was taking a program to become a corporate coach, an executive coach. And I met just so many wonderful and interesting people. And I met this woman who was doing spirit animal readings and coaching as a, what would I say? It was branding for brand. She was doing to help you with your business, finding a spirit animal for you that would help you with your business. So it's kind of interesting. She's a marketing person, but she was also a Harvard trained biologist. So she actually used her science of the biological animal kingdom and married that with her metaphysical life, and created this whole process around identifying a spirit animal for you. And there are spirit animals that are with us for our entire lives, and then there are spirit animals that can come in and just bring you a message about something specific. So her focus was around spirit animal for your business. And so I went through her process and learned about that, and then through a year-long shamanic coaching program with her, and learned about shamanic journeying and how to help people find spirit animals, or to help go through guided meditation with them. They can find their own spirit animal, or you can journey on their behalf and find it for them, and go get messages for them, depending on the person's comfort level and what they want. So I can do either of those things. And I still consult with my primary spirit animals regularly, and I've had other ones come in that are totally unexpected with messages.
Can I ask what your primary animals are?
My primary is rhinoceros. Is my primary spirit animal, and I have been he's always been with me, but I've been aware of him for about 6 years or so, maybe even longer. I was doing a meditation with my teacher, and she said, oh, she said it's kind of an uncommon one. But the message she had for me was walk as me. And if you think of rhinoceros, they are slow and steady paced, very sure-footed. They have no natural predators. They don't have any reason to be afraid of anything other than humans, unfortunately. But they're just very strong, and they can be fast if they need to be. If they're threatened, they will charge. But in general, they just kind of, lumber through life and have no fears, And so that was the message I got. I was like, just don't be afraid. You've got nothing to be afraid of, and you're strong, and you're fine. So I call on that a lot.
That's totally cool. But you talked about starting to do this. Did you ever bring this work into your corporate life, the more metaphysical?
Yes. So I have been starting to do that. I'm still doing some corporate team building and some coaching with high potential leaders, younger high potential leaders. And we've been doing some cool things. We'll do guided meditations, sometimes at the beginning of a workshop, to sort of, everybody's been traveling and is rushed getting to the location. And this is when, before COVID, when we were physically gathering, we would just kind of set the tone and calm everybody down. And here we are all in this room, and, let's accept what we're here to learn. And, so it's very nice to set the tone with a guided meditation. And then at the end of the week too, we would do the same thing to kind of like seal in the learning and send everybody off safe travels. And it's lovely to start to be able to do that. And I've done some things with spirit animals. I have some spirit animal cards, and didn't call it spirit animals, but just as maybe an icebreaker kind of exercise, have everybody pick a card of an animal that is jumping out at them right then. And what is this animal saying to you today? And so people just, whatever comes up for them, they can talk about. And you don't have to use the spirit animal terminology, but it's just a way of kind of bringing that kind of stuff in and marrying those worlds, and it feels good.
It's interesting to hear you speak about that, and I think I could have a whole other conversation, a total show only on that. And one of the things that had happened to me, this has been years ago, but this gal I worked with, who is a member of here out west, the Washoe Shoshone tribe. Mm-hmm. We worked together. Unfortunately, she passed away from cancer, but we were doing some work together. And she said, have you ever noticed that you're always surrounded by birds? And I go, not really. She says, pay attention. She goes, we've been traveling. You always have hawks. And when we've been other places, some even bigger birds. And I said, okay. And she goes, just pay attention. She didn't give me any more information than that, but it was interesting that because she paid attention better than I did to those things.
Wow.
But it was pretty interesting, and it did, kind of set me back a little bit, because I'm thinking, well, okay, they're predators, they're tough, and they're free.
Yes.
I have no idea what all of that means, like how you would interpret it, but for me, I'm going, thanks, I like that.
Yeah, that's good. And I do encourage people to interpret it for themselves. And how I was taught was, not worry so much about, you can look up websites where it explains the meaning of a particular animal. But my teacher would have, coming from biology, would have done exactly what you did. Think about what are the actual characteristics of that animal, and what can they tell you about your own life and about who you are and who you want to be, and what strengths can you draw from them. So the fact that, they're free, and they're predators, but what what does that mean? Maybe it's getting your you can really sink your talons into something, or I don't know. There's a lot of places you could go with that, but
absolutely. Trust me, I'm pretty sure I've been there. We could. We absolutely could. Hey, so I do want you to talk, as we wrap this up, I want you to talk about your conversations with the moon. So that, and then I have 2 more short questions for you.
Okay.
So yes. What were those?
So that was really another one of the things that set me on a different path from, coming at this as an engineer and, from a very narrow background into thinking that I could change my life and be on a different trajectory into the future. My now ex, we were still married, and he once again was changing jobs and moving to a different state. And at this point, I was really starting to think, I don't think I want to go with this guy. He'd had 2 DUIs now, and he was continuing to change jobs frequently, and I was going to have to move yet again and give up all my support systems that I had just rebuilt from the last move. And so and yet I was still on this, I should, be the good wife and all this stuff. So I was really struggling with the decision whether to stay or go. And my dog woke me up in the night, and she never did that. But I thought, all right, she's got to go out. So I get up to take her out, and we go outside, and it was one of those gigantic low in the sky full moons, a really beautiful, just straight outside the door, first thing that hit me in the face. And I don't know how to describe it other than it was like it was talking to me. And the voice that I heard said, "You're missing the point." And I was like, what? What do you mean? And went on to say, "You're missing the point. It's not about what you do. She literally said, it's not about what nice suburb you're going to live in. It's think about how you want to feel. How do you want to feel? And who do you want to be in this world? It's not about what you do." And that just set me on a totally different path, because I never thought about how I wanted to feel. I never thought that my feelings were that important. I was busy weighing the logic and the pros and the cons and what I should do and what would my mother think and, what was best for my kids. And it never occurred to me to think about how I wanted to feel. And so that was a whole different animal. And we went on to have lots of conversations after that. And it occurred in the same way. My dog would get me up in the night. I'd go outside. It didn't matter if it was a full moon or, half moon or what. But we'd get into these conversations. And a lot of it was around self-love, which I didn't understand that concept either. It wasn't something I thought about. If I thought about it at all, I thought it was selfish to put your own needs first, right? It's take care of everybody else and do what's expected of you. Be a good employee, and a good wife, and a good mom, and a good daughter, and good neighbor. And my needs and my feelings didn't really matter as long as I was fulfilling all those roles for everybody else. And so it taught me that you can't pour from an empty cup. Right? So if you don't have anything left for yourself, you're not going to be good in any of those roles. So it is important to love yourself and put yourself first. But I just had no concept of that. And it was all baby steps. And that's what I would encourage anybody else to, that's kind of struggling with this concept. It's, one little thing at a time to do for yourself. Light a candle, go for a walk, take a bath. Say no. Say no to something you really don't want to do, but you think you should do. So those are the things I learned from talking to the moon.
So having a dog that can boss me around as well. When you went outside to talk with the moon, so your dog woke you up at those different times to go do that. What did your dog do? Just sit there, or did they actually need to go out too? And it was helpful.
Yeah, they would do their thing. They would like, okay, we're out here. Well, we'd walk around the neighborhood, and I'd be having these conversations in my head with the moon, and they're just doing their dog things.
Their dog things. Well, it's happened to me where it's like I go down, I'm thinking, okay, are you ill? Do you need to go out? And then you go out, and they go out and they sit down. I'm thinking, really? You couldn't do that upstairs at 2:30 in the morning where I'm comfortable. But that's another reason to get up and go. Right. So always I trust my little canine buddies for their insights.
Absolutely. Well, that's how I got to it being the goddess Diana. I was telling this to a friend, and she said, well, the fact that you're talking to the moon, I think you're talking to the goddess Diana because she is the goddess of the moon, and the fact that she's working through your dog because she's also the goddess of the hunt. And so she has an affiliation with dogs. And so that's how I got on that. And it was kind of interesting talking to a goddess, or talking to the moon. But I've since come to believe that there are many faces of the divine, right? There are many faces of spirit, and however you can connect to that resonates with you, whatever works, right?
The important thing is to connect with it.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know what? I am just like, no pun intended, over the moon that we got to meet. I actually think that there's really no coincidences. And, this was on the calendar for a while. And then all of a sudden, when I was prepping for this yesterday, I started getting really excited. I'm thinking, oh, I'm so excited. I have no reason. I had all the same information a month or so ago. But before we go, I want to ask you, for folks who have listened to you today in our conversation and they're saying, I really, really need to connect with Rebecca. What is the best way for people to reach out to you, Rebecca?
The best way, I have a website, and the name of my website is evolvewithoutlimits.com. So come on there and you can send me a message or get on my mailing list. And I have an email address, which is rebecca@evolvewithoutlimits.com. So you can email me directly, go to my website. My books are available on Amazon, and they are also available through my website. And you can see there any place where I might be speaking or doing a workshop. And I'm working on an online course, and that should be available soon as well. So lots going on, lots of things percolating.
That is so exciting. And when you get your online course ready to go, reach out to me. Let's chat about that too.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that would be fun to share with folks.
Great. Okay. I will do that. Thank you.
Okay. You get one shot parting wisdom, one little piece of parting wisdom for everybody.
I would say you have way more power than you know. You have way more strength than you know. And so know that you can create the life you want and go for it because you are worth it.
Mic drop on that. Everybody, check out the links in the show notes for this podcast. We'll have all the different ways to reach out to Rebecca. Please, if you like this interview and you found value from it, please share it with somebody else, because that's how people will get to know Rebecca. And frankly, it's how this podcast gets noticed, because this is an entirely labor of love on my end. And the more people who know it, the more people who can benefit from Rebecca and other people who are sharing their life journey and their wisdom. So please rate and review, share it with another person, because that's how we share the love. And we'll see you on the next episode.
You've been listening to the No Labels, No Limits podcast with best-selling author, change agent, and strategic vision coach, Sarah Box. You can grab the show notes and find out how to work with Sarah at sarahbox.com/No Labels, No Limits podcast. We'd love this podcast to reach as many people as possible. So please remember to rate, leave a 5-star review, and share the podcast with someone you think would get value from this conversation. Until next time, keep taking those daily action steps to align your purpose to your principles and achieve your goals in business and life.